Welcome to the Big Book Roundtable and the RICO 12 family of recovery resources targeted at people from all backgrounds, faiths, and places dealing with addictions of all varieties. RICO 12 is a resource for anyone out there, whether addict, loved one of an addict, or just somebody trying to figure out life. I'm Justin B., a child of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a multidisciplinary addict, and I'm living today in the miraculous recovery promised in the steps of described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm blessed to be the moderator of this roundtable. I'm sitting here in this virtual meeting on a Zoom meeting with people from all over North America. I've got Nikki M. from Toronto. I've got David G. from Oklahoma. The three of us are living this miracle of recovery one day at a time. Now, quickly, I'd like to have David introduce himself, and then we'll get to Nikki to introduce herself.
Thank you, Justin, for your service as always. My name is David G. I'm an alcoholic addict of many sorts, and really grateful to have been in the rooms of recovery and in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous in recovery for almost 30 years now. So really grateful to be here. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, David. Nikki, you're up.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nikki M., and I'm an intelligent agent spearhead, and I like to always repeat that because that's what the book says I am. And I want to remember all the time what the book says because this is my lifestyle and way of living. And I'm really grateful. I need you guys today. I need to be woken up deep down in my core. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. And as I've mentioned before, I'm in Spokane, Washington. So we've got this triangle of North America covered pretty well here in this meeting. And it's fun to do that with all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of experiences, strength, and hope that we're happy to share. We're happy to learn from each other and with each other. All right, we're going to get back into and finish up the chapter more about alcoholism today in our reading. We're just going to cover a few paragraphs there on page 43, the last 3 paragraphs of the chapter, and we'll discuss these things. So out there in the listening world, get your Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, get a pen, highlighter, paper, take notes, learn, and explore with us as we do this. And we'll start here on page 43, Fred's story. Fred's story speaks for itself. We hope it strikes home to thousands like him. He had felt only the first nip of the ringer. Most alcoholics have to be pretty badly mangled before they really commence to solve their problems. Many doctors and psychiatrists agree with our conclusions. One of these men, staff member of a world-renowned hospital, recently made this statement to some of us. What you say about the general hopelessness of the average alcoholic's plight is, in my opinion, correct. As to two of you men whose stories I have heard, there is no doubt in my mind that you are 100% hopeless, apart from divine help. Had you offered yourselves as patients at this hospital, I would not have taken you, if I had been able to avoid it. People like you are too heartbreaking. Though not a religious person, I have a profound respect for the spiritual approach in such cases as yours. For most cases, there is virtually no other solution. Once more, the alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink. Except in a few rare cases, neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power. As we close up this chapter more about alcoholism and get ready to move into the next one, I think there's some very powerful things in what we just read in these few paragraphs here. David, why don't you take just a minute and talk to us a little bit about some of the things that we read here?
Yeah, absolutely, Justin. And again, thank you so much for your service in RICO 12. It's an honor to be a part of this. And what a powerful chapter. We've seen thoughts, ideas, concepts, beliefs, attitudes, the things that precede the first drink, the first drug, the first love affair, the first whatever it may be. These are the things that set us up. And so if I'm only focused on getting sober and going to meetings like I'm told to do when I come to the fellowship, but I'm sitting in there suffering, then I've missed something. And we've made it pretty clear over all these weeks what that is. And so he's going to talk to us about it just a little more. We need to remember that as we close out this chapter, we end step 1 in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. When we move into We Agnostics, that entire chapter is devoted to step 2. So from the doctor's opinion all the way to here is the first step. There are 88 pages that describe the first 11 steps in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. 43 of those pages are on step one. People tell me all the time, I work step one. Step one is the only one I work 100% every day. I call bullshit. If you do 43 pages every day, then you need to get my number and give me a call. I'd like to have a visit with you. But I have not found that. So this is powerful. Fred's story speaks for itself. We hope it strikes home to thousands. He had felt, keyword, only the first nip of the ringer. Most, not all, but most. I meet alcoholics, addicts. They come into the rooms, they get a sponsor, they go to meetings, they work the steps one time, and they're good for the rest of their life. That has not been my story in 30 years of Alcoholics Anonymous, Sexaholics Anonymous. I continually, repeatedly, over and over and over have to work the steps. It's like Chuck C. says, one of the old timers in AA, it's the burr under the saddle that keeps us hopping towards spiritual way of life and to find God. That has been my story, because more is never enough for me. It's just not. And that includes sobriety. That includes going through this book, no matter what it may be. One of the cool things about God is he always wants better. He loves me where I'm at, but he's not going to leave me there. I'm going to have to move. I'm going to have to grow. So most alcoholics have to be pretty badly mangled before they really, and I think that's the key word, commence to solve their problem. Some come in to solve their problem, but they don't really commence to do it until you get a really good emotional ass beating in here, sober. And then we really start to take some action. I've got a guy I'm sponsoring now who just went through the same thing. He called me up and he was pretty miserable. And I just said, where are you at in your fourth step? Well, I hadn't moved on. Well, maybe that's why. And the dangest thing was he called me today. He'd moved on his fourth step and he's having a great day. Things are good. Yeah. Wow. Really commence. So let's talk about this doctor. He's a doctor by the name of Percy Pitlock. Was his name? Percypitlock. Percy Pitlock. One of these men, staff member of a world-renowned hospital, that was him, made this statement somewhat. What you say about the general hopelessness of the average alcoholic's plight, that's the first step in this book, is in my opinion correct. As to two of you men whose story I've heard, there's no doubt in my mind you are, that's a promise. You were 100% hopeless. That's step one. Apart from divine help, that's step two. Had you offered yourselves as patients at this hospital, I would not have taken you. I've met a lot of sponsors that have said that about different. They'll send people to me and they're like, I can't take that guy. He's too crazy. He's absolutely nuts. He's insane. I want him. Send him over here, man. That's the dude I'm looking for right there. The one that's in sobriety just getting beat senseless. And here's why, and it's not their fault. People like us are too heartbreaking. And I know this story all too well. My wife and I had this conversation today. She said, my God, you're the craziest alcoholic sober I've ever met, but you're the most loving when I'm in recovery. So I cooked her breakfast over that deal, by the way. No, I did, but it wasn't because of that. And so, though not a religious person, he says, I've found profound respect for the spiritual approach in such cases as yours. And here's that word again, most. Not all, but most cases, there are virtually no other solution. And that has been my story over and over and over in here. So he says, once more, if you remember at the top of page 23, he said, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in the mind, not the body. So for the next 20 pages, he has told us over and over and over, gave us example after example of the thought that precedes, the thought that precedes. He says, I'm going to tell you once more. The alcoholic at certain times, these two words struck me a year or two ago when I was doing a big book study with a group, well, an international group, actually. And see, this isn't going to come at me all the time. There's going to be times when I'm absolutely okay. There were a couple of years I remember riding high in sobriety. Things were good. I was working with others. Things are going well. Just like we seen with Jim. All of a sudden, a thought. Same way with Fred. At certain times, not all the time, but certain times, I'm going to have no effective mental defense against the first drink. Because self is going to rob me of that power. I'm like power. That's what's wrong with it. And he says, except in a few rare cases, neither he nor no other human being And that includes the fellowship of any fellowship you might be in. There's going to come a day that's not going to be enough if that's all you're doing and you're the real dude in here. Just going to meetings and not drinking is not going to be enough. If you're like me, it's damn sure not going to be enough. I about died from that kind of information. So he or any other human being can provide that defense. My sponsor, at one time, sponsors I've had thought they could. They're no longer my sponsor. They can't provide, they can help me to connect with that defense, but they can't provide it. That defense must, and that's a key word. I've got that underlined 5 times in my book, must come from a higher power. So everything that we're going to look at from here moving forward ain't going to have a hell of a lot to do with drinking, with eating, with sex, with love, with drugs, with any of that. It's going to show us how to overcome a state of mind that continually beats us into relapse over and over and over and over. And we will recover from a hopeless state of mind, just like the book says. And it's going to lay out a program of action for us to do that. So I'm super excited to be here and to hear my friend Nikki. Thanks, Justin, so much for your service, bro.
Thank you, David. Love the emphasis on a few of those phrases there. We'll likely get to those here in a minute. Nikki, talk to us a little bit about what you pull out of our reading today.
Well, I just pull out a lot of gratitude. Like David said, I was thinking about the 3 of us here, like God's really working. I mean, even that David, again, he's telling us doctors' names in this book, Justin. I know our brains are exploding when he comes out with this information. I always look up at you. It's like, oh yeah, and we're both smiling because he knows so much. So, and you and what you do, and even me with my craziness, it's like, God really knows the blueprint for our life. That's what I want to say. And as you said, we're closing out this chapter, or David said that, it's like, about what? We're closing out the chapter about alcoholism. Everybody, I just want to emphasize this real quick. Look up at the top of your page on page 43. It says alcoholism. It doesn't say alcohol. And as David said, it doesn't say just one addiction. This is the disease of alcoholism self. So I'm just so grateful because it started out, if you look where we started out on the more about alcoholism, it's like most of us have been unwilling to admit that we're real alcoholics or suffering from this disease. And then again, where David just left off at the very last sentence, it's like, this book is so perfectly written because it must come from this power. We're not willing to admit it. And I don't think a lot of us are even willing to admit that it has to come from this power. But right before this call, I took a new sponsee through what David said. He likes to get the nutty ones. Woman wasn't so nutty, but she was referred to me by somebody, 14 years sober, and not sponsoring, not really commencing to solve her problems, just not drinking and not smoking cigarettes too. She told me she gave that up 12 years ago, but that's all she's doing. She's not doing much more. So, I love this line where it says most addicts, and I always put addicts above alcoholics in my book because it's this addiction to whatever, have to be pretty badly mangled. See, I don't even want to work with you unless you're badly mangled. I don't even want to look at you. And a lot of people want to take me hostage. Nikki, don't you want to know my story? No, I've read the book. So I know I know how you're pretty badly mangled. I didn't even speak to this woman. I just said, get your book. Let's start. I don't even need to know anything about you because I've read my book. And this person I'm working with today isn't really badly mangled. She's not living the miracles. So I have to put a stamp on it every day that I have to be badly mangled, line out every day. Because I have to want this program. I have to commence. And again, if a lot of my sponsees, not even me, I don't have master command of the English language, even though I like to say I do. I have to Google, commence. I have to start every day to do this work. And, this doctor here, Mr. Dr. Percy, I have to be generally hopeless every day, 100% hopeless every day. We read in back on our book on page 12, it says, you have to want God enough. That's a key word, enough. Are you wanting God enough? I got to be hopeless every day. And people like you are too heartbreaking. I came into the rooms over 12 years ago through Al-Anon. It's heartbreaking and then I found out I'm the one who has the problem, but I came in here to save my alcoholic because it was heartbreaking watching this person literally die. And then it's heartbreaking to have my mom live in my house. knowing that her husband of 25 years took a pistol and blew his head off. This is a heartbreaking disease. And this is what I told my sponsee today, my new one that I was working with. I said, this is why I don't mess around. This is why I don't mess around with you. She's my age, 50 plus. And it's like, no, we don't get to mess around here, because there is no other solution. There is no other solution. If you're like me and the easier, softer ways don't work for you, the middle of the road solutions don't work for you, the half measures and the human aids do not work for you, there is no other solution. You have to be desperate every day, hopeless every day. And the alcoholic at certain time has no effective mental defense against the first thought. I have no defense against the first thought. Like, this point in my life, what's eating my soul in this moment is my neighbors and their renovation. Okay. So if this point in the podcast you're listening as you're on the journey through the big book, it's going to be different things at different times. Right now it's my neighbors, and I have no defense against the first thought. But you know what? The second thought, I did have a mental defense, because I know I can't be angry. The big book's a working part of my mind. See, my defense must come from a higher power. And how do I get connected to this power? Well, when we get into our next couple podcasts, it's going to tell us, it's going to say that's exactly what this book is about. It's designed to get you to this power every day. It's designed to get your defense from this power that you're going to tap into by following the exact instructions of the big book. No one can give me the gift of desperation. I have to get it myself, as my note here. And I have another note at the bottom, blank space. This is from my Al-Anon sponsor. He said, we can't think our way into good living, Nikki. We have to live our way into good thinking. I always write quotes down because I collect sponsors. Oh, I got a lot from David G. and Justin in my book here. Okay. I love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. All right, man. There's such good stuff in here. And you both opened my eyes to a couple of additional things that I hadn't seen previously. And I'm excited to maybe share those in my takeaways. But I have a question for each of you. David, you talked a little bit about, I can't remember who the person was you says this, but talk a little bit more about the importance of that burr under the saddle. Doesn't that seem contrary to the happy, joyous, and free promises that are there? What is the importance of the burr under the saddle keeping us going?
Well, some of the examples, and that was Chuck Chamberlain, by the way, Chuck C., old timer, that wrote A New Pair of Glasses. And, Bill Wilson suffered from depression for a long time after he sobered up. And I did too, the lifestyle that I was living, yesterday's miracle is not sufficient for today. I need a new one. I just do. And we know that after we've had this experience and we start working with others and we begin to rest a little bit in our lives, things begin to show up that don't line up with the four absolutes. That's the burr under the saddle. And that will keep me hopping toward finding God, or else I'm going to fall back. And I'm not going to fall back drunk, thank God, or any of this, but I'm going to fall into depression. I'm going to fall into misery. I'm going to fall into self-pity. I'm going to blame. It's your fault. It's their fault, But I've never been able to rest for very long. And I think our book supports it on page 85. One of the few times that it says that this program is going to be easy. It says it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action. That's steps 4 through 9. And rest on our laurels. We're headed for trouble if we do. It doesn't say we're going to get drunk, we're going to overeat, we're going to fall out sexually, but we're headed for some form of trouble. And I need to remember that I'm recovered, I'm not cured. And if I forget that, then life seems to remind me of that. And that for me has been the burr. And so I've never been able to rest for long periods of time in this program in almost 30 years now. I've had really good, happy, joyous, and free times. But if I'm not constantly in contact with a power greater than myself and working with others, and I stray from that a little bit, we all know, we've all been there. Anybody tells me you haven't been there, you're probably full of it, because all of us get lazy. We just do. And one of the questions in inventory, whenever we get to the fourth column, we'll look at that work when we get there pretty in depth. But one of the questions there is, where was I to blame? And so I kept coming up with all these places that I was to blame. And my sponsor said, let's sum it up real easy. you're spiritually lazy. And that pissed me off. I was like, really? You think so, hon? He said, no, I know so. He said, you're 25 years sober and dying in the rooms. You tell me, are you spiritually lazy or not? Have you worked steps 10 and 11 to the best of your ability every single day, and you're helping others 100% like you should be? And I was like, no. It's like, that's where you were to blame. Had a friend call me up just the other day. He had a bad resentment against the guy. And he was trying to look at where he was to blame. And he was coming up with all these ideas. And I said, man, let's just sum it up. How long have you held on to that resentment? And he said, week. And I said, how long have you been in this program now? And you know this book. And he said, several years. And I said, so where were you really to blame? So really, to answer the question that was first thrown out, I think these are the things that's the burr. And anytime you try to set on a burr, under a saddle, on a horse, and watch what happens. You're going for a ride. And that's the same here. So thank you, Justin.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, David. Good additional insights for me. Nikki, you talked about working with a new sponsee who doesn't currently appear to be pretty badly mangled, but they are not living in the promises and having a real hard time with that. Talk to us a little bit about the difference between not living in the promises not living in the promises versus being pretty badly mangled, and how maybe working with another in those situations may look different or the same.
Okay, thank you. And I need, I love David G, but I need to know your sponsor too, because I love that he can speak that truth over you. I say the same thing. You're lazy. You're lazy. And that's what this woman is that I'm working with. She's lazy. And I told her that, and we'd only known each other 10 minutes because I could see that. You've been in the rooms for 14 years. You're not even sponsoring. But what does the difference look like from the promises coming true? Is that what you're asking? Like promises coming true? Yeah,
living in the promises versus being pretty badly mangled.
Okay, well, she's not getting the promises. Why did she reach out to me? Because someone referred me for her sex and love. She's ending a relationship, right? This is where she's at. She's like, I think I need Sex and Love Anonymous. I'm like, you just need your big book. You're just missing the instructions. You can go to those other fellowships to gather some information. So what is it looking like for her? She's just existing. I'm not even quite sure if she's living on page 52, the bedevilments, because I didn't get into it with her too much. She's having trouble with personal relationships. There it is. She's my age and she's ending she's not controlling her emotional nature. I didn't get much information, but she's not happy. She's miserable. She's depressed, she said. She is making a living and she really loves her job. But as I talked to her a little bit more, here it is. This is so cunning, baffling, and all powerful. She's a workaholic. She doesn't know life without working. Like, I love my work. I love my job. No, you don't know how to enjoy life. Because I didn't either. I didn't know. It's like, I love to work. No, Nikki, you don't know how to sit still and just be. You don't know how to just be. Because let's go deeper. What does the promise look like? It's not like I love working and I'm blotting out my consciousness with my great job. It looks like I can be at perfect peace and ease alone, doing nothing. Right? I mean, you're not going to sit and do nothing forever, but we have to have those moments. She's full of fear, probably, because at this age, when you're 50 and you do get a new set of conceptions and beliefs, you do go, maybe I do want a life partner to grow old with. Maybe I do want a wife to make breakfast for. See, so what's the difference is that the promises, when you're there, I think, especially for someone like that, like me right now, I'm just seeking more God. I need new set of steps. I need all these new things. I'm living the promises. Like I said, my neighbors are a little bit eating my soul. I can hear the noise next door, the construction and whatnot, but I'm still happy, joyous, and free. I'm at perfect peace and ease alone, even while these things are going on. And what it looks like when you're not, this would consume my whole day. I would have had to say to you guys, I can't be on here. I can't do a podcast, my neighbors. And then I've got to find, I'm busy plotting and doing crazy stuff. I'm burning up energy foolishly, trying to arrange life to suit my needs when the promises aren't coming true. And I'm just living in the disease of alcoholism. So I hope that answers the question. I mean, if you really want to compare, what does it look like? Page 52, the bedevilments, if you're living there, or you're living in a loneliness as few do on page 152, or are the promises and there's a promise pretty much on every page here. Or are you just living at perfect peace and ease alone with the creator of the universe? That's a pretty good measurement. Hope that answers that.
Yeah, well, thank you for that insight and that information. What you shared, Nikki, brought me to something that, and I'll just do a quick thing here, going back on what you just said. Yesterday, I was in a meeting where something was brought up that in the past would have had me on edge, would have had me going, and I was sitting next to a person that when that was brought up, his leg just started bouncing. And he was going insane. He was starting to rock and everything. I was like, that would have been me a couple of years ago. And here I am sitting here and I feel peace. I feel comfortable. I feel like I can look the world in the eye and not shrink from what has just been brought up here. And I just felt for this guy sitting next to me who was not in that place. And it's a beautiful thing to be living imperfectly in these promises, because I can live that way. Awesome. Thank you so much, Nikki and David. David, what takeaway do you have from our conversation that we've had so far?
Well, just that this chapter gives us a lot of hope for the first time in my life, and hopefully in the ones that have listened to us all the way through this. If you don't see that the solution is so much bigger than not drinking, not using, not eating, not loving, not any of that, but that there's hope, that now we know that we suffer from a hopeless state of mind. The words that we picked out here, thoughts and ideas, and I mean, man, we can recover from this. We absolutely can recover from this. And if we don't, then it's going to come back to visit us sometime, no matter how sober we are. So, I just take away a lot of hope from this first step. When I was new, whenever I was young in recovery, I hated being in the first step in the book. I want to hurry up and read through that so we can get out of that and move on. No, man, this is where it's at. I keep coming back. This is why I work with people. I read the book with them. I stay in these first 43 pages over and over and over and over and over, because these are the things that has not only changed my life, it's changed the lives of thousands of people now because of the experience I had, not only back then, but more so in 2019. It's went widespread. So, man, I'm looking forward to the rest of this and just so grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Nikki, how about you? What's a takeaway that you have from our conversation and reading today?
Well, just after hearing David, a word came to mind, which is sponsoring. If you're listening and you're here, this is a lifestyle for a lifetime. You must sponsor. But my takeaway from what we've done today is really, people like us in this disease are heartbreaking. People are dying all around me in my city, in the world. I'm sorry, from this disease of alcoholism, and it's heartbreaking. But I'm armed with the facts, and so my tears don't fall from my eyes, because there's no other solution but God. And so I'm armed with the facts. And so if you're going to die, you're going to die. And that includes anybody around me. And I don't mean 6 feet under sometimes, The Walking Dead. Let me know how that works out for you, because I'm here at the roundtable with my boys, getting into God and getting pumped up with this power. So that's my final thought, is that I'm high on God dope. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. My takeaway has to do with this last paragraph. It really hit me as David was sharing, and as Nikki shared a couple things, that at certain times, if I am just sober, at certain times, I will have no effective mental defense against the first drink. And I will need something beyond the fellowship, something beyond this round table, beyond these people in this round table that I so admire and love, that I, feel I could reach out to and get strength from at any time. But even that will not be enough at certain times. I have to rely and get that defense from a higher power. And I'm excited to look into this We Agnostics and dive into step 2 from here. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, David. Thank you, Nikki, for your insights. Thank you all out in the listening audience. Get in here and get into this book, get into this way of living, because when those certain times come up and you have nothing and even listening to us and us spew our wisdom and our experience, strength, and hope doesn't work for you, tap into that power greater than yourself. It can work, and it will work as you are willing to have it work. And you're worth it.